Ryan, I've been looking forward to this one, even though I'd only seen the first preview like a month ago. It feels like in theater time. Uh, Maggie Q, Samuel L. Jackson, Michael Keaton, The Protege. So we get an action film.
Yeah, that isn't a Marvel movie.
That is not a Marvel movie. You are correct, even though it's got a Marvel guy in it and a DC guy and a Marvel guy at the same time. Yeah. Let's start this easy. Samuel L. Jackson's a hitman, rescues a young Maggie Q during a job, raises her, so she becomes a hitman. He is killed. She wants to avenge her mentor. Fair enough? Simple?
Yes.
Michael Keaton. Always nice when Michael Keaton is a villain. Am I wrong?
I think it's just always nice when Michael Keaton is Michael Keaton. So whatever
Yeah.
he wants to do.
That is true. But I do like watching him just kind of because he chews the scenery more when he's the bad guy.
This is true.
So he didn't kill Samuel L. Jackson, but he works for the guy who had Samuel L. Jackson killed. So Michael Keaton and Maggie Q go tete-a-tete a couple times in this film as she's working her way up the vengeance ladder. Like I said, I was looking forward to it because I was excited about a movie with these three, an action movie with these three people in it. Were you excited? Were you what were you? Where were you at going in? Protege.
I had not seen the trailer.
Oh,
I had not. I knew the poster.
Sure.
I don't even think I knew who was in the cast beyond Maggie Q. So
fair enough.
I went in. I went in for. Well, I should take some of that. I did know that it was from the studio that brought you John Wick.
Yes, from the studio that brought you John Wick.
So I knew what they were going for here. Yep. Yeah. So I knew that it was going to be well, it's not. I mean, you look at the imagery of the poster, and you pretty much know that Maggie Q is playing some sort of woman with a gun who has experience with said gun and knows how to pose with said gun. And anyway, there's a lot you can infer from just the poster. So I didn't know what the story was going to be. I didn't know Samuel L. Jackson and Michael Keaton were in it, but I can't say that I was overly surprised by seeing either of them in this film. It seems kind of in their wheelhouse for both of them. So, but no, I didn't really have any preconceived ideas about what it was going to be about, and maybe that's okay, because I think the weakest thing about this movie is the fact that it's pretty darn generic.
Okay, you know what? Let's go there. The words that I wrote serviceable actioner.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Kind of movie. Because I want my action movies to at least be serviceable. From the studio that brought you John Wick, 2, maybe 3 years ago at this point? God, it's just been one big movie blur now. The last time we saw, that I recall, seeing a female-led action-type movie was Peppermint.
Sure.
Which I liked more than most people, because I found it no less outlandish than any male-driven action movie. Shoot 'em up.
Sure.
So, and
that was the Jennifer Garner, right?
And who doesn't love Jennifer Garner?
Okay.
So I didn't have a problem with it. So I expected this to be better, and on several levels, I guess it was. I think it had a stronger character premise than Peppermint did, but the action in this one is a lot. It is a lot John Wick.
Sure, but I would say not as choreographed. It doesn't have the same artistry level as John Wick.
Right.
I think that it's not poorly done action, but I do think it's not on par with John Wick action.
Well, you're right, because there's a couple parts where I feel like the choreography gets where there's like a hiccup, maybe in one or two spots in the middle of something. But I think the other difference, because they are clearly going for that John Wick feel in their fight scenes. I think the other difference is that in John Wick, the scenes are so incredibly long.
Sure.
And in this, they're a lot more traditional in length. There's a lot of one-on-one, one-on-twos that go on for 2-3 minutes and then they're done. Whereas John Wick, it is just this. There are just 10-15 minutes, it feels like, of just this endless cycle of combat. Which again sets that bar so high. And if anyone that's listened to the podcast at all knows that you and I both really like the John Wick universe.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why. But so I don't want to penalize this movie for not being John Wick.
No, and I mean, but it's a selling point for the studio.
It is.
I get that, and it's not an entirely inaccurate, thing
Comparison.
for them to say regarding this film, because it is likely to appeal to a lot of people who like John Wick.
Yes.
I think it's not nearly as stylized. It's not as stylized as Atomic Blonde was either.
No.
Which
that's true. I totally forgot about Atomic Blonde.
Which Atomic Blonde, I think, was closer to a John Wick film than this is. Just the visual style and things.
Right.
I don't know that Atomic Blonde is better or worse than this movie. Maybe a little better, but not radically better. And and I have to admit, I was a little disappointed with Atomic Blonde, but I'm not, because I think it aspired to be more.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think this movie kind of did what it set out to do. And I think it had lower aspirations.
Right.
I think that, the key difference, I think, between this and, say John Wick, again, is you talked about the world building. There's not really any world building going on here. It's kind of just a generic, generic world.
It's our world, and they're living in it. Whereas in John Wick, we feel like we're going into that world.
Yeah, there's a different world that exists within our world, but it's so radically nuanced and different that it's whatever it is. But this film is not that.
No.
And it's few films are, to be honest with you. I mean, I think that's why a lot of us gush over John Wick. It's because it's actually a really rare thing to have a world that has such a rich and explorable sort of. I mean, there's aspects of the John Wick universe that I'm sure that we have yet to explore and think about, and whereas
we will in part 4.
Sure, but whereas I think this film, you kind of feel like the world that it takes place, and there's not a lot of question about, well, how does that function, or how does that work, or what if you break this rule, or it's a lot more straightforward, and that's fine. But I think the thing that sets this film apart from a lot of other kind of generic action films is the cast.
Yes. I agree. And let's mention the director on this is Martin Campbell.
Yeah, who did a Bond, I believe.
Did 2 Bonds, actually. He did GoldenEye, which one of my favorites, and still the best Nintendo 64 game.
Yes. Awesome
and Casino Royale. So he's not unfamiliar. So I would actually argue that this is closer in style to a Bond film than a Wick film.
That might be true.
And I would be remiss if I did not also report that Martin Campbell directed Green Lantern.
Okay. Well,
looking at his IMDb page, I'm looking at the IMDb page right now.
Then suddenly
certain things make sense.
Makes a little more sense.
Right. So, but he's used to, he's been in a world. He's been in the Bond world. So he does understand the action part of it and the behind the scenes part of it. So, I mean, so it's not like he's it's not like he was directing period pieces for Merchant Ivory.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And came into this.
He's perfectly capable. I mean, yes. I mean, there's, however you want to look at it, he is perfectly capable. It's a perfect, and I would say that about, almost every aspect of the film. It's perfectly, there's nothing particularly wrong.
I actually have a bone to pick there. Now,
Okay.
not everything is right with or exceptional in this film, but you're right. There's not really anything wrong with it except for the following.
Okay, let's hear it.
The quote unquote chemistry.
Oh, well,
between Maggie Q and Michael Keaton.
Well, there's one particular line that I won't repeat that is got to be one of the worst lines, not only written but delivered.
Yes,
and it feels like it's lifted straight out of a porno.
Yeah, but the thing is that their chemistry just is so terrible. I
don't. But I think it's also, I think part of that is because it is kind of we've progressed storytelling wise to a certain extent. Although oddly enough, we'll be talking about something similar in a movie coming up in a few times. A little bit here that has a sort of element of the sexual tension between the two fighting people. The good guy, bad guy, whatever, and the two of them, the passion of the whatever. Anyway, but you're right, and I think it's a very 80s throwback or even pre-80s throwback to have that element in there. I don't think the movie would be better if they weren't trying to throw that dynamic in as well.
Yeah, or even if they'd have just brought it back to, there's not a problem, is there? Yeah. When his boss asked that question, it's like, if you'd have left it there, that would have been a perfectly acceptable line to draw. But after it went past that, just in both directions, that chemistry did not work at all.
Yeah.
I also, the film takes place mostly in Vietnam, for reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I left, and I don't normally get these thoughts when I watch movies, but I came out of it, and after everything that went on in the movie, I was like, it feels a little exploitive of Vietnam's violent past. Just in the 20th century. I just feel like it's not a setting. It's I don't know if it's exploitive or not.
And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't know. I there is a lawlessness to the film that it suggests, and I didn't think a lot about it. But you might be right. I mean, there might be. I mean, I've never been to Vietnam. I don't know what it's like in Vietnam. But yes, I think they are, suggesting, because this is Vietnam, that there's a more chaotic element. It's the place where these hitmen and whatever can go and lay low or live and exist and not have to worry about, any sort of police presence, I guess. I'm trying to think are there police in this movie?
No, not really.
I mean, I think they leave this. I don't know. Yeah, but there's certainly a lot of death and killing in this movie that police would go to, but I don't really remember a police presence. So that is an interesting, and maybe if they set that in a different country, I noticed that.
Maybe. I mean, because
that's an interesting point.
Yeah, because I feel like most of the films, because even tangent, even I've seen some movies set in the Philippines that I've known guys that were stationed in the Philippines, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and so I've heard stories, and and you see depictions on film, and of course it's Southeast Asia, and so, but a lot of the films that actually come out of the Philippines are not depicted the same way Western films depict the Philippines. So I'm wondering if the fact that this is a Western film, a Western made film, even though it because some of those Philippine films that are held or influenced by that market that come west aren't the same. So I'm just wondering if maybe that's the difference, is that this was purely a Western production that happened to be set in Southeast Asia. So
and I think it does feel that way. I mean, it doesn't at any point feel like it's particularly important that it's taking place there. There's not any sort of cultural, real cultural element.
No, the only culture is the only reason it seems important is because all the Vietnam vets are there, and they have their own subculture, and that's kind of where the film takes place. So it's, like I said, it was a very weird dynamic, and like I said, I don't normally notice enough to where I feel like I need to mention it, but I couldn't help but it just, I don't know, if it just kind of bothered me a little bit, not to the point where I'm like, oh, this is a horrible thing, but I was just like, man, it just feels that maybe it's not exploitive. Maybe there's kind of leaning on that American version of Vietnam more for this film, and maybe that's what I'm seeing. I don't know.
Well, I don't know, and I mean, to your point about the the veterans being there, I don't think that's ever really.
It's not explored.
No,
it's just taken.
It's kind of well, here it is.
Yeah.
And yes. So again, world building. If they had wanted to do it, there's one place where they could have.
Yeah.
Take us into the world of these ex-vets who, for whatever reason, have gone back, and why are they back? And, what is, I mean, there's a lot that could have happened there that obviously didn't happen. So,
yeah. Yeah. So, but overall, no, there's a cute little bit of Ocean's 11 style misdirection.
Sure.
In the final set pieces, which you don't have to look hard to see because it's not that level of clever.
No, I don't think it's not really trying to be. Is kind of, again, it goes back to ambition. I don't even think I think it's a very simple, straightforward action movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's trying to say anything particularly different, or I don't know. Anyway, I think it's a good popcorn movie, but not an exceptional one. I don't think it's one that we're going to be begging for a sequel for.
No.
Although, I mean, look, I would love, and I'd love to see a better version of this.
Yeah.
I think that would, not necessarily set in this universe, but I think I think Maggie Q and Michael Keaton and Samuel L. Jackson deserve better scripts a lot of the time. And not that this one, again, it's not that this one's terrible, but when it's up to them to make the movie noticeable or different, or I don't know. It's better if it's got a great script and great actors, rather than we got great actors working with a mediocre script.
Yeah. So that's of course makes me wonder if they could theoretically cross this over to Wick in 4, at least tangentially.
Well, they could, but I don't think if they were going to do that,
they should have brought it this direction.
Well, I mean, or they should have. I mean, it's just so. I don't think stylistically. I think yes. Could they? Yes, they could. Should they? They absolutely should not. Because this film is so artistically different from the John Wick films that it doesn't work for me in that way. And to bring this character over, I don't. I wouldn't buy it. I think that would cheapen the John Wick universe, and not again because this movie sucks, but because it's just on a different level.
Yeah, it is. So there you go. That is the Protege. It opens tomorrow, only in theaters. So from Lionsgate.
Yes.
So
the studio that brought you John Wick.
The studio that brought you John Wick. Yeah. They bring you John Wick's cousin. So, but no, yeah, no, it's fine. It's a perfectly acceptable way to spend an hour and 3/4 watching. I mean, some good action, not necessarily great action, but some good action, solid action. And yeah, it's okay. I got out of it pretty much what I thought I was going to get out of it. So that's okay. So that's where I'm going to be on the Protege. We have got one more movie to talk about that comes out tomorrow. We've got a movie that comes out next week that we'll be talking about from Marvel. Yes, you know what it is. And we've got several others that we're trying to get put down so that you can enjoy our blathering on about those. But until we do, stay safe, be nice. Don't forget to like us, follow us on social media at VS Movie Podcast. But you will know all of that already. Till next time, I'm Mark. That's Ryan. Bye, Ryan.
See you guys.
And we'll talk to everyone later.